Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to another edition of our Across Retail Talks. By the way, it's the first in 2023. My name is Reinhart Winiwarter. Maybe you know me, meanwhile. I'm the publisher of Across magazine, and I'm very pleased that so many people across Europe are here today. By the way, you can follow this talk by using Zoom, by using LinkedIn, and by using also YouTube. 2023, a very special year also for Across magazine. Why? Because we are celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. Founded in 2008, my publication has developed one of the leading media platforms for the retail and placemaking industry in Europe. And before we start our discussion, I would like to give you some information regarding a special, let's say, anniversary activity we are planning to do. It will be in May, the 18th and 19th. We will hold our first Across study tour. This study tour will bring us to Lisbon, and we will have a more detailed look to the most innovative, the newest, and the most actual retail destinations of the city. Maybe you have time to join us. You can find all information on our website. So, back to our discussion. Our topic today, in my opinion, a very, very special and important one. Outlets, a winning retail format. A top-class discussion group is ready. As you know, Klaus Striebich will lead this discussion as our expert moderator. So, and please take part in the discussion by using the question and answer function. And in a few days, if possible tomorrow, we will send out a summary of this discussion in form of a video and a short text summary by our newsletter. So that's all from my side at the beginning. I now hand over to Klaus. Klaus, the stage is yours.
Thanks very much, Reinhard, and happy 15 years anniversary of Across magazine. Great. And it's fine to see lots of people listening also in 2023 to our format, Retail Talks with Across magazine. We have a little anniversary. It's the 5th year already in a row, and it's still, let's say, highly accepted. And we are very proud to have this group today here. Outlet centers, a winning format. It's not called a new winning format, it's a winning format. And we will figure out why is this the case and what could be done to be also a winning format in the near future. So we have lots of retail activities, meanwhile, doing in our scenery, in our industry. We have lots of buzzwords like placemaking, like innovation, like omnichanneling, like platform economy, like community building, like ESG, and much, much more to say. But also lots of retail formats are evolving. So we have retail parks, of course, in that times very important, but we have lots of new pop-up systems. But we have lots of outlet formats as well, and mostly known as kind of off-price format. This kind of off-price retail is a very fast-growing format. Why? We will figure it out. McKinsey said off-price will be developed in the near future 5 times faster than full price. Maybe there is a reason why. The current market share looks like about 11% in retail industry. I would love to introduce my top-notch panelists and before we start our questionnaire, and we have with us, and I start with the lady if I'm allowed. So we have Alexandra von der Grün with us. Alexandra, very nice to meet you here online. How are you and what are you doing within Adidas at the moment? Because you're very busy, I know.
Hi, Klaus. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm honored to be invited to this. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm the VP Retail Expansion for Adidas Europe. And since February, I'm also leading the franchise business for Adidas in Europe. Talking about outlets, we have a fleet of around 190 outlet centers out there. Therefore, I hope I will be able to contribute to that, to the conversation today. I don't think that I have to introduce the company I'm working for. I assume that everybody knows what Adidas is about. If you don't know, it's actually the best sports company in the world. So that is all you have to know about Adidas.
There's a second reason why we have invited you, and this is the company for sure. Yeah. The first one is, of course, the person.
Thank you.
So thanks, Thomas. Would you follow my board colleague from the advisory board of Across Magazine, second time with us, Thomas? A little introduction.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me today. I think after now 2 years of pandemic and the last also, let's say, tough year with the war in Ukraine, I think it's a good format also that we speak today, and I hope it will be a very intensive and lively discussions today. I am a co-founder and managing director of Ross Retail Outlet Shopping. My business partner Gerd Graf and myself, we set up the Ross Retail Outlet Shopping in 2011. We have opened in total about 5 designer outlet villages from scratch and took over more than 10 outlets at the management. We're running at the moment in 9 countries, 12 designer outlet centers in Europe. We have a kind of a tailor-made approach to the outlet business. We are an independent service provider, which is this pure service provider for investors that are invested and are proactive investors in the outlet business. At the moment, I think we are, like all the other outlets, quite well on track, and Otto will just confirm that the outlet business was doing very well this year. So we are also very proud that for the first time in the last Costa report, one of our centers, Warsaw, was ranked as the 3rd best center, and it's the first center from Central Europe. And I think today should be also something, as we are all service provider, something where we really can give additional information or follow the needs of the participants. So it should be really some things where we get a lot of questions and hope we can answer all the questions. So happy to do so. Looking forward for the next hour. Thanks.
Super. Thanks for that. That leads to Otto Ambagtsheer from VIA. Otto, nice to see you again here in that round. How are you?
Very good, Klaus. Good to see you again, and thanks for inviting me to the panel. Maybe introduce myself first. I'm Otto Ambagtsheer. I'm the CEO of VIA Outlets. VIA Outlets owns and operates 11 premium fashion outlets in 9 countries across Europe. What we have, what we call a growth strategy. So for our 11 existing outlet centers, we apply our 3R strategy of remodeling, remerchandising, and remarketing. And we want to elevate and grow our centers and elevate the overall guest experience. For our inorganic growth, we are looking at, in a selective way, at acquisition, and then to reposition these underperforming assets. But we only look at acquisitions when they present itself. When I discussed with Thomas, 2022 was our best year ever, both top line growth and bottom line growth. And with top line growth, it means in terms of consolidated brand sales, and the bottom line from an EBITDA P&L point of view. So we had a great year of 22, and the beginning of 23 is also very strong. Our purpose is to redefine the outlet shopping experience. So we want to be innovative. We want to be a front runner on the outlet shopping experience. And we're 100% owned by APG.
Super. It's all good that we, after 3 years of big challenges, we hear lots of good news, good numbers, and good predictions, maybe, and good outlook. So, and we have Gunn with us. Ken, would you love to introduce yourself a little bit? You are placed in a very nice environment, so maybe you give us a hint where you are or where you're based.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Ken Gunn. I describe myself as a retail business consultant. I specialize in feasibility studies and growth of all assets. So I've worked on about 300 shopping center projects and around about 200 outlet center projects across Europe. I guess over the years, I've realized that outlet is the thing that I love. And I enjoy most. I'm actually showing you an image of the very first outlet project I worked on 20 years ago. I'm actually sitting in the centre director's chair today, having just done a leasing meeting, and you know, the thing that's been lovely is to share that growth over the years, from concept at Springfields in Lincolnshire through to creating a thriving, dynamic, successful retail destination, and hopefully playing a part in continuing its success well into the future.
Super, thank you very much for the introduction. And there's a second idea we have to follow again. Could you give us, as the consultant, that's the one who is the independent consultants, a little overview about the European outlet market? So maybe you have the chance to tell us some figures, numbers, whatever, in 2 minutes time, that our audience know what we are talking about. Let's get started, Ken, if you are prepared for it.
Yeah, of course. Well, outlets in Europe began around about 40 years ago. And they've developed through a number of different formats and iterations, which we'll come on to the if you like, the village format that we know and love today. There are around about 200 outlet centres in Europe. The turnover in total is around about 19 billion euros. Without jumping too far ahead, outlet has come out of COVID stronger than it went in, and is in great shape for growth. I estimate that the next couple of years, next 2 years, by the end of 2024, outlet will have added another 1.5 billion euros worth of turnover onto its existing turnover. These days, it's a vibrant community, which includes more than 15,000 shops, more than 4,000 brands, and spans at least 5 separate tiers of performance, of retail brand mix, and of lineup, which you can see when you start to delve into the industry. So it's been incredibly successful. It's outperformed standard shopping centres and retail parks very strongly for at least a decade. It gained a reputation maybe 20 years ago as being counter-cyclical, but it's also very different from shopping centres in the way that it's managed. It's an operational asset rather than a capital asset, and that's why you have such a great panel of people sitting in front of us today with such great experience to talk about.
I will come back to that, and thanks very much for the little insight which is necessary for our talks, and to give the people outside who are listening a chance what we are talking about. So the origin of outlet centers, or factory outlets, however you name it, has been maybe stock clearing. I think that's not longer the case. May I start with Alex? If we talk about, let's say, the format outlets, off-price retail, or let's say factory outlets, there are different styles. What is it still the case, stock clearing? Yeah, or is there other reasons why Adidas, as one of the leading brands in the world, is that successful? And that's my guess, that you are successful in these outlet centers, is present like you are, Alex.
Yes, so of course, outlet still partially is about stock clearing. I think that's the nature of it. However, it has changed massively, and for us, outlets are mainly the first touch point with the consumer. So a lot of consumers have the first touch point with brands in outlet centers. So they would not necessarily go to these stores somewhere or find these stores, but in outlets, all of a sudden they do have that. And I think the biggest thing that has changed, and I think Otto said it at the beginning, when you also talk to outlet developers or outlet managing companies, you are not talking about consumers. What you constantly hear is people are talking about guests. And I think that is a huge change from, yes, we build a block somewhere just to get rid of our stock, towards, hey, we create an environment where we give you great experience, we service you, and we are your door to discover certain brands for the first time. I think that's a big change.
Was this a kind of, let's say, natural move because it was a little bit poor or bored going into a factory outlet with, let's say, a poor building with lots of, let's say, products and shelves and whatever it is to an other way how to, let's say, move the product in the hand to the consumer? Was it a logical move? Or was it a perfect, let's say, move because the consumer is waiting for that kind of service?
I think it's a natural evolvement from both sides. I mean, you see how outlet developers are building their outlets. This is not just, hey, this is a box and you go and sell. I think it's from both sides, from the retailers and also from the outlet developers driven to be more than just a place where you buy something that is cheap. So I think it's a natural evolvement also as the consumers are asking for that.
Yeah, super. Thomas, can mention somewhat that some assets are finance oriented or capital driven, however, a kind of asset class. But he mentioned also that this is a kind of operational asset. Thomas, what is your point of view on that? And let's also add some remarks from Otto on this question, if you allow.
Yeah, but I think, and that just can underline what has been said already by Alexandra, I think it's now, we see it in a different way, yeah? Clear there are investors and they want to get, you know, the finance reward and then all of that. But there are two lines. First of all, you have to create something where you give guests, customers, people a reason to visit. This was the original destination, to have to create destinations, because normally the outlets are not in a city, are not on prime locations in the original way. So we have to create together with our brand partners something where the people say, okay, it's a reason to visit, first of all. The second thing is, I think we have to do it in a way that is tailor-made. So it can be sometimes normally a greenfield development, can also be in the future in a city. We have done something in Bad Münstereifel in Germany. It can be in a tourism area. So I think it's something where people get aware of something special, yeah. And I think our competition in a way is not maybe other shopping centers, but it's also other leisure activities. I think we see it a little bit in this way. And there has been a kind of a, you know, generation starts with, you know, off-price stores, then it goes over to agglomeration, street malls, and now I think the final normal designer outlet is a village style type. So I think this is at the moment the last generation. And I think the work together with the brand partners is absolutely key for us, yeah. And also the proactive work together with the investors. So things like, I don't know, ESG, so that all the centers are already years ago, you know, changed to LED. Yeah, this is now an ESG topic, but in reality, we all have done this years ago. So all the work together with the brand partners, sharing in a confidential way, figures, performance, you know, all the retail KPIs on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, in annual strategic meetings, to have common goals together is a very important thing. So it's more or less managing together a retail project instead of just being a pure finance vehicle. I think that's maybe the biggest difference in my understanding to a normal shopping center. Maybe. But maybe
I fully agree with Alexandra and Thomas. I think in those 40 years that Ken mentioned, a lot of change. So initially the outlet channel was all about, you know, price and offer, but nowadays it's much more than just discount shopping. You know, we really want to create a day out experience, much more focused on placemaking, on store fits. And I always try to explain to people it's totally different business model than the full price channel. It's a fast-growing retail channel, as we all know. I've seen some research, some studies. It's actually the second fastest retail channel, beyond besides the online channel. So it's difficult to compare with full price because it's a different business model. And one of the key elements, of course, is a strong brand partnership and brand relationship that we see in this channel.
I understood in the discussion that there was a need to create some additional reasons why the shopper should, let's say, reach this new location. Some of the needs have been, all the outlets have been out of town or in artificial locations, or you have some, let's say, efforts to come or let's say to reach the location. On the other side, it's maybe less offer because you have less products you can sell. There are some things missing, so there is a big need for more reasons. Ken, from your point of view, you have a general overview. Are there other reasons? We call, first of all, the customer now guests, which is a very, very important differentiation. What kind of other reasons or reason why do you see for the people?
I think Otto touched on it just a second ago. Value, which is easy to dismiss outlet as just value, but value is not about price. It's not just about price. It's about the extra that you add. And I quite often talk to people about visit multipliers, the other things beyond retail that make you choose to go to the centre. You know, again, echoing what was said earlier, we live in a world where people have choice to shop online, choice to go to a city centre, choice to visit a retail park, and Thomas rightly said, choice of leisure activities as well. And what we're trying to do in the outlet community is influence that choice and to make outlets stand out as the destination. So there are many, many different things that you can add. Lots of people talk about adding leisure, and we see schemes, wonderful schemes across Europe which are mixed use. So Gunn Quays, for example, in Portsmouth, where you've got a combination of cinemas. 30% of the mix is food and beverage. For example, I'm sitting in Springfields. You wouldn't recognize it because part of Springfields is a garden, a free garden that people come. And today you'll see Granny, Mum and Dad and the children out in beautiful sunny day, enjoying the time together. So hospitality and creating a place where people want to spend time as much as purchase goods is a fundamentally important part of what's going on at outlet. And yes, you can say, well, Bicester Village doesn't have any gardens. No, it doesn't, but it has wonderful brands that we all aspire to go and visit and see. And the theatre and the enjoyment, the excitement comes from these brands. But there are other outlet centres which are more fundamentally driven by leisure activities and hospitality activities as well. I mean, ideally, the outlet, a good outlet wants to make people look good, feel good, and act good when they leave, and that really sums it up.
Yeah, super. Thanks for that, Ken. That fits perfect to the first question from the audience, to be honest. So we have already got the first question, and the question is, what is your experience, all of you, of how long the average shopper spends in an outlet? How much time do they spend, maybe in total, or maybe in a shop, Alexandra? If you have some, let's say comparison to other stores, is there a comparison? Is it sensible to compare it? And how long do they spend, despite the fact that they have to drive a long way to reach that outlet, and they will spend a little bit more? So we have to be fair. But what is the experience? Alexandra, would you love to start?
I think it also differs from day to day, if it's a weekend or a weekday. But I usually, and we heard it quite sometimes now, it's a destination, so nobody's going there just to do a quick to purchase something quickly. So my experience is that people go there for a daily event thing, so spending the whole day. And I think that's also the reason why there is more and more focus on creating the experience around the shopping, like having good food, having we just heard a garden. So I think it's a day thing. It's not just I go there to quickly shop something or buy something. It's I want to spend the day there with the family.
Is it also a logical move because people drive, let's say 60, 90 minutes, maybe more to reach this outlet because there's not so many spaces? Because if you invest time for the trip, maybe you want to stay a bit longer, so you need to offer something in addition.
Of course.
Is it what people request?
Of course. And I think also, that the parking usually is free, is the starting point for success. People go there, park their car, and then spend the day there, have good food somewhere, maybe have something else. But yes, of course.
Yeah, I think the whole strategy is about offering a day out experience. So a move away from just discount shopping, but offer an additional experience. Now that's very much part of our strategy as well. So that's why we're also trying to increase the F&B offer, and not only the quality of the offer, but also the amount of F&B choices you have. So it's all about how can we increase that dwell time and make sure that your guests are spending a longer time in your centers. It differs center for center, but it can go up 4 to 6 hours or even longer. So it all depends on the experience you offer. And again, it's a good example that this is not just about discount shopping or transactional shopping. It's more about experiential shopping.
An additional question, Mr. Hennis, to a shopping mall or to a retail park, you can go on a weekly basis. Let's start like this. How often do people drive to an outlet center on average a year, from your point of view?
No, more often. We have a loyalty program called the Fashion Club, so we can measure how often our guests are visiting the centers. And again, it differs center by center. But in the full price, if you have a supermarket, sometimes people will go there every day, more or less, or go there several times a week. That's of course different in an outlet center. But we see sometimes 6 to 9 times a year people visiting our outlet center. But again, it differs center by center, different catchment area for catchment area, and also on the brand mix, of course.
Thomas.
Yeah, one thing I would like to add on this. I think if you really compare it now, and one of the USPs is clearly that you have the discount, the guaranteed discount. That's the one thing. But on the other hand, you have more or less in good outlet locations so many brands on one place that you normally don't have all these brands as mono brands, as premium mono brands, as premium sport brands, fashion brands, whatever, on one place. And I think this is also a USP in itself. The second thing is, adding to that what Otto already said with the F&B offer, it's also that we had just recently added more and more new categories to the brand mix. Things like, for example, we have the largest Gardena or the largest WMF outlet in our portfolio in Europe. So you think, what is Gardena in an outlet? But again, now during the pandemic, this was a big asset when you have all these things for gardening. So it's not just purely fashion, it becomes also a broader mix for the customer. And so it becomes more attractive overall and enlarges the customer base and also enlarges that welcome.
Ken, you have something to add?
Yeah, I think echoing what's being said, it depends on the role of the outlet centres. And I described a hierarchy a little earlier, different tiers of outlet centres. If you are Bicester Village and you're targeting people from across Europe, then your average visit frequency is going to be less than if you are Springfields, where I am today, and you're targeting people who live within 60 to 90 minutes. So what you tend to see is the larger outlet centres with the top tiers, they would tend to have a visit frequency of maybe 4 to 6 times a year, whereas somebody living 10 minutes or 15 minutes from where I am today might visit 25 or even 30 times a year because it's become their local shopping centre. And going back to what you were saying about outlet centres being out of town, a lot of them that came out of sensitivity with brands being nervous about locating too close to their flagships. But what outlet centres also did was become district centres for local communities as well, who didn't have access to high quality shopping. I think we were talking about, Thomas was talking about the quality of the brand mix that you only really get in major regional city centres and capital cities. Suddenly that's accessible on the doorstep. So why wouldn't you want to shop there?
Yeah, super. So let's talk about growth. Can you mention that 1.2 billion in addition will be made? Is it a kind of a like-for-like growth? That will be interesting to hear. Is it a growth of, let's say, new locations wherever they are? Or is it that you expand the branch? Because we hear a lot of, let's say, expansion development. Ken, what do you think? What kind of growth do we see?
Yeah, the only thing that I could say that's right about expansion of new sites in the industry is whatever I say, it will be wrong. It's very, very difficult to actually accurately predict when things are likely to happen. There are lots and lots of outlet projects in the pipeline, but some don't have planning, some don't have finance, some don't have both. And most important, the thing that drives our very existence is adequate demand from brands. So where you see expansion is very much at the moment like-for-like expansion. There was a massive recovery from the depths of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it didn't recover all in 1 year. It's recovered over 2 years. So really, 2022, you were seeing outlet centre just starting to get beyond where they were in 2019. We're now, because I was saying there has been a tremendous improvement in the quality of brands. Thomas and Otto have been working particularly hard at making sure that they replace brands, that they drive forward. Then it's really like for like. It's really about the existing schemes powering forward.
Okay, Alex, are there outlet malls or locations like this where are not in? And do you see some more growth for Adidas? Or is it just like-for-like growth because you're so pushy?
I think we are covering Europe quite well. Of course, we also still have some white spots. However, when it's about expansion, I think that in the future, it's not necessarily about growing the fleet, whatever it takes. It's more about qualitative and sustainable growth. And I think the winners will be definitely those centers where you have a good management, a good service, where you have a good collaboration also with the developers, where there is a service model, and it's about growing what is successful and making sure it's sustainable. It's less about just opening more centers. It's about making sure you have the right ones in the right areas and also with the right partners out there. Because I think both sides at the end of the day want to be successful. So it's just those who don't do it right, I think they will lose in the future.
That's a very important point, because it should not be the case that in each and every corner we should see an outlet center in the near future, and there will be a huge difference, and we should figure it out in a few minutes time. What are the differences? Thomas, how do you see the growth? Is it maybe more Gardena stores or more, let's say, WMF? I love this store, by the way. I know where it is. I'm passing by. To be honest, my wife sends me all the time.
I think we are doing two things. First of all, it becomes very, very difficult all over Europe to do greenfield developments. So on the one hand, it's that brands are tending to say, well, it's for me better to go in maybe an existing center where I know already what the performance is, or go in an extension of an existing center which is already successful. And greenfield developments, we all know the prices has raised, construction costs are much higher, permissions is very, very difficult all over Europe. So I don't think that we see so many new centers. What I see is 2-3 options. Make bigger, so make successful centers even bigger, or do rejuvenation or takeovers, as Otto mentioned, of under-managed or underperforming existing centers, which is a big chance where permissions are already there and you have the defined good catchment area. And the other way might also be for the future takeover of existing non-performing shopping centers and do a kind of a complete rejuvenation program and create a complete new outlet out of that. So these are also topics we are investigating at the moment. Where are options, where are investors that are interested in that? When you say you have a shopping center, which on the long run, the performance might not be as expected, so convert that into a designer outlet center. So there are also options which might be easier than to create new destinations. And I fully agree, we should not, flood the continent now with new outlets, because it's still something special for the customers. It's not a day-to-day shopping, and it should remain something special. So therefore, I think this is in my understanding, and we're very happy with what Otto also said with the like-for-like increase that we had last year. Yeah, it was really outstanding. But on the long run, we need to permanently invent our brand partners. We need to, do rejuvenations of the shops itself, bring new brands, more trendy brands to the thing. And one thing, I think, and now I want to finally add my comment on that, we should not forget people management. I think the people management is absolutely critical in our industry. So we together train in agreement with our brand partners, the people in the shop, the store managers, the sales stuff. So we're working together. What is the need? Training for, I don't know, sales, for leadership, for whatever. So this is a cooperation. I think people in our outlet centers, in our management team, but also in our stores are absolutely key. And the expectations of our customers and our guests are much higher than they had been. Yeah, so they really expect the level of a service which you have normally in full price retailing, in my understanding. So maybe I'm wrong on this, but maybe you can also give me some comments on this.
I will come back to that later if you allow, but I would love to stick on the discussion about, let's say, remodeling shopping malls into outlet centers. And maybe that's a kind of, let's say, provocative discussion. But at the moment, many developers or, let's say, owners say, okay, I have a suffering mall. I changed it into the winning format called outlet centers. I'm not really sure whether that fits. First of all. Second is, lots of discussions about department stores should be changed and turned into outlet center. They are mostly located in downtown areas, in big cities, whatever it is. Otto, I think you're following the discussion very closely.
Yeah.
What is your point of view on that and the discussion which you may?
Yeah, no, it's a lively discussion for sure, and it's very relevant. We also sometimes get approached by full price shopping center operators that would like to transform their full price shopping center into an outlet center. But it's not that easy. So first of all, it's difficult to get the zoning plan changed because it's a different kind of retail. And the brand's also concerned about cannibalizing full price. So if you're downtown, you are in competition with your full price retail offer. So that's the reason why most of the outlet centers are more out of town location. So you have less concerns about competing or cannibalizing your full price retail offer.
So Alexandra, this is the most important part for also a brand or something like that, because it's still 90% full price business. Hopefully, because full price retail is a bit more, had a better margin or maybe a better, let's say, prediction than outlet or off price. How do the brands see that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. It's about the marketplace. Yeah, where is this? And we just heard it. Of course, these shopping centers usually are downtown. Then you have, as a brand or as a retailer, you will look into the marketplace. If you, what is your wholesale doing there? What are your key accounts doing there? What role would that store play for you? What's the target consumer? But as we heard already, I mean, the likelihood to open an outlet in the city center where you already have your brand represented through wholesalers is not very high.
And could you consider, all of you, a kind of combination, which is also an ongoing discussion? That is, 50% of a mall is suffering, so that we keep the supermarket and we keep the drugstore inside, but the rest will be then in outlet mall?
I find it very complicated to explain to your guests.
Yeah.
Stick to your DNA. You're either an outlet center or full price shopping center. If you're going to mix things, how are you going to communicate it to your guests? You make things extremely complicated, in my view. And it's a different business model. It's a different way of managing it. So I would be careful to mix these different channels.
Yeah. And have you seen somewhere a successful example? I think there are some non-successful examples already existing. But
you see outlet centers and full price shopping centers next to each other.
Okay, next door.
Yes.
Yeah, you have La Vallée, you have the one in Malaga, you see the one in Algarve.
Yep.
So you have quite a few.
In Algarve, we are coordinating is the IKEA centers, because IKEA is the owner of our Algarve outlet centers. It's a clear split which brands are in the full price shopping center in the Algarve of my shopping and our outlet. We have another brand mix. It's completely split and it works, but it's a clear split of USP. I fully agree.
And this has,
and here is the full price.
And this is explained to the customer, because the customer could understand this way of retailing, or to the left and the other way to the right. Okay.
It's a completely different world.
Okay.
The construction, this is a covered mall, the other one is an outlet village, so it's completely different. The brands are not overlapping.
Super.
There are some very practical differences as well in terms of the typical unit size that you find in shopping malls versus outlet centers as well. Typically outlet centers have smaller units. They don't have department store anchors, for example. I've looked at a number of potential conversions, most recently one that was proposed in Athens, and you're actually talking about quite a lot of capital work in order to get the environment suitable for outlet. And we must remember that brands trust outlet because it presents their brand in a supportive way. You know, what you can't have is terrible adjacencies, you know, poor brands next to good brands, because it undermines the quality. So it's very, very important to keep the concept and the product as pure as possible. I mean, that being said, you can see instances in outlet centres where some higher quality brands, some luxury brands are selling full price alongside discounted outlet product as well. That happens. It happens at Bicester, Woodbury Common, and places as well. The important thing is those prices need to be clearly marked and identified. And we shouldn't forget that the smartest person in this entire game is the person that comes through our doors and spends money with us. They know what's going on. They see it. If we do not keep that concept right for them, they very quickly stop becoming outlet customers.
I love this. I love this because I'm always predicting that the customer will steer us in the right direction. Meanwhile, we have some questions from the audience, many of them. And there's a first question. Maybe you can give us some feedback from it. There was a question. Can you say something about how far people travel to an outlet? I can imagine that this varies from country to country, and maybe the population density and things like that. Could you give us, maybe Thomas and Otto, a hint from your experience, what kind of distance or travel distance we see?
Yeah, I think man would do the same in Otto, but I think we have our core catchment of the 30 minutes, 60 minutes is more for the weekends and 90 minutes. And we should also not forget the tourism, which is in some areas very, very important, like for us in the Algarve, for example, in Gdansk, and in other areas not that important. So in average, it's been between, depends on the center, around 60 to 75 minutes, let's say it in this way, would be our range.
Okay.
Yeah, we do the same. We look at 30, 60, 90-minute catchment. And of course, in general, the consumers come from a wider catchment than in full price, but also in some centers, tourism is an important part of the business. So that's a totally different catchment. But I think in general, the catchment is wider than for full price. Yeah. Also, when you offer that day out experience, people are more than happy to drive an hour and a half, sometimes even 2 hours, to experience that day out in one of our centers.
Alex?
I would like to add something. It's at the end of the day, it's not only about the consumers or the guests, it's also about staff. Because I think that is a key question becoming a bigger and bigger problem at the moment. It doesn't help if the center is amazing, shiny and whatever. You also have to make sure you find people who are willing to work there and who live nearby. And that is getting more and more tricky to also ensuring the accessibility of the centers for also people who do not have a car. Yeah. So, and I think that is something we also have to keep in mind, not just how far the consumer is willing to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. The time flies extremely fast. I'm really
maybe adding on that. Yeah, so we are organizing in some of the centers shuttle buses, for example, from downtown Zagreb together with IKEA to the center for the co-workers and for the staff members. So I think this is also some of that to create also for the people working there a good atmosphere, yeah, and other goodies also. Yeah, so it's very important to get good talents in the centers. Absolutely. Yeah.
This is a kind of additional service you have to offer because of the location. On the other side, that leads to the, let's say, differentiation of how to service that outlet center. And I would love to go deeper into that topic again. So there's a difference between shopping malls with their branch and tenant mix and their location in the outlet malls. And the good thing is we have Otto with us, who has his background is a little bit of a so-called full price business. Let's figure out some little differences between those two asset types.
Yeah.
Could you try to give us a first summary? Or
something? It's a different world, Klaus. It's a really totally different business model. I would say the outlet channel is much more a win-win business model with share risk. But just the way we're managing our centers on a day-to-day business and a week-to-week business, we use retail KPIs. We look at sales densities, capture rates, conversion rates. We're not really looking at real estate KPIs when we manage our centers on a daily or weekly basis. And of course, the whole way of the lease structure, higher turnover rents, lower base rents, the product offering is different, more out-of-town locations. The brand partnership is a true brand partnership. And we also provide data to let the brands perform better. And therefore, VIA will benefit because of the turnover percentage mechanism. So, and I think Thomas mentioned as well, the way we operate and manage our centers, it's much more intensive and hands-on than in the full price channel. So it's really comparing apples with pears, I would say. And of course, it's a much faster growing retail channel as well.
That sounds all reasonable and sensible, but why should shopping malls do not adapt on that? Why couldn't they also use retail KPIs, finding new lease models, all that stuff, which is a kind of, let's say, cooperative model? Why could shopping malls not follow this strategy?
Well, it's not so easy. There's a reason why there are only about 5 or 6 outlet center operators in Europe who were able to do this. It's all about the concept retailers serving retailers. So you need to have a retail mind shift, and it's not so easy to adapt. So I think a lot of full price shopping center owners, operators understand that they have to go to this direction, and this is the way forward and the future. But to adapt, you need a different kind of skills and competence in your company to be able to manage your center in this way. So it's not that easy. It sounds easy, but it's not.
I heard that in several outlet centers, there are, let's say, 1 or 2 handful of people from the service company who help the retailers to push their business. Thomas, is that the way you are also operating? And is that a kind of, maybe it's easy to understand, maybe more difficult to adapt. I love this approach, but Thomas, what is your point of view?
Now, I think Otto said a lot of what is clear. Yeah, we are not retailers, by definition, but at the end we're service providers, and we provide a service to our brand partners, and they provide the service then finally to the guests and visitors and customers. And I think it's clear that at the end the result is important, but you need to have a good balance. You also need to have the right proactive investors. So at the moment, the normal, don't get me wrong, normal behavior would be in a shopping center, the contract runs out of a brand and then you prolong a contract. In our world, we permanently talk to the brands. Are you in the right location? Do you want to have a bigger store, a smaller store? Are you anyway in the right way? We are doing something wrong or right in marketing? There's a permanent exchange of ideas, of innovation. So there is like working like a small, let's say, head office of a retailer together with your stores in a way, Clearly, the stores have their own CI, they have their own identity, but overall, all the concept, if it's now a denim week, a sports week, sales week, a specific event, it's the center as a whole presents under the guidance of the management with all the brand partners. It's not that someone starts with sale here and another one starts sale there. So things like that are much more coordinated. And I think we're doing, as mentioned, UPT, KPI, we have all the KPIs, and we exchange them. Where is the footfall good? Where is the footfall not good? Is this entrance better than the other? So all that is in an open way shared. And I think this is also one of the secrets, a trustful work together with the brand partners and also with the investors, and said, look, we need to invest here and there, that we are ahead of the game in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So it's also necessary to have a very proactive investor behind you, and not just someone who wants to just get the rent, because all the turnover rent, the ratchets and all that details of the contract, it's a total different mindset as it is normal in the shopping centers, where you have a lot of stability. In the outlets, you have stability, but you have a lot of flexibility and innovation parallel to that.
Alex, if there is a pushy service company like VIA or RS, who is always asking on a daily basis, how can we increase sales? How can we optimize the store? How can we enlarge? How can we push? Do you like that?
At the end of the day, both sides have the same goal. Yeah, it's a common goal. We want to earn money. We want to drive net sales. And I can only 100% confirm what Thomas and Otto said. Remembering some years ago, so quite long ago, a meeting between a brand and an outlet operator was about, okay, let's go through our lease details. When do we have lease events coming up? That has massively changed. And these meetings are actually retail teams on both sides, you have marketing on both sides, you have retail operations on both sides. You really go very deep into KPIs, and the exchange between the both sides is, of course, it continues to be on real estate level. There is, of course, a counterpart and conversations about that, but it's shifting more towards retail operations, making sure that you drive the KPIs in the best possible way. And that requires mutual understanding on both sides. So both sides have to have the same knowledge and understanding of retail. So I fully agree. It's not as easy to say, now I hire somebody who is helping driving retail. You need to have retailers. Otherwise, the retailers out there will not take it for serious. Yeah.
Honestly, I do fully understand that. Maybe also the audience outside will understand it. And why shouldn't other retail assets, whether it's a department store or a retail park or shopping mall, stick on that or adapt it and try to maybe change it step by step into this cooperative thinking, which is, it sounds modern and it sounds really successful and sensible. Unfortunately, we have only 10 minutes to go, and we have a massive list of questions, meanwhile, from the audience, and very good ones. I changed my model a little bit, and I would love to raise that questions that are somewhat answered to one of yours, and I try to moderate it. First question is, outlets are continuing to be developed in downtown locations, and if so, how do brands reconcile with the potential impact on their full price sales? Ken, is it the questions answered by you?
Yeah, happy to. I think it's about the type of outlet. So yes, we do see mixed use outlets in downtown locations. One of the most successful examples of that is Gunn Keys in Portsmouth, for example. You're seeing a lot of discussion about that in Germany, and of course there's Outlet City in Mexican, which is a great example of that. Where you get more of a Outlet City Mexican is perhaps a pure luxury quality outlet, so maybe a little different. But where you're seeing a lot of downtown locations, they tend to be a little bit more hybrid with leisure, and they tend to be at a different tier, so they don't quite attain the quality of brand mix of a Bista Village or an Outlet City Mexican do. But that's fine, because outlet have a variety, and you tend to find that certainly the lifestyle brands and the sports brands are less concerned about the sensitivity and the proximity to other locations, because they appreciate the channel, than perhaps brands in the luxury segment.
Okay, thank you. Another question was, do you think we will see Chinese tourists or maybe other tourists from international parts returning to the European outlets the first half of the year or later? Thomas and Otto, what is your view on that?
Yeah, we expect the Chinese to return to Europe, but probably not before the end of the year in more substantial numbers. But it's not easy to predict. But for sure, they will return to Europe. They enjoy Europe. They enjoy the cultures and also outlet shopping. But probably you have to wait till the end of the year before we see some more substantial numbers.
Thomas?
Well, yeah, I agree. And on the other hand, we see a huge comeback of tourism, European tourism. For example, when I mentioned again, I was in the Algarve in Portugal, where tourism was dead, and now it's huge. Yeah, with the Brits, the Germans, so the inner European tourism is very strong at the moment, also in Italy, so everywhere.
Okay, super, thanks for that. The next question, do outlets necessarily need to have significant leisure offer, or it's mainly a driving for distance schemes, more far away, more leisure, more experience needed? Would Adidas see some more leisure offer in outlet centers? Does that help and fit, Alex?
That's a good question.
A climbing wall for the latest Terex shoes.
I believe it's at the end of the day, it's the mix. So having a healthy mix of leisure, brands, F&B, that's maybe key to success. But I think the leisure part will become more and more important. Yes.
And what kind of, let's say, offers could we see, or have you seen, Ken? If you have some little examples.
Oh gosh. I've got a lifetime of examples, from the gardens behind me to cinemas to theme parks to food and beverage. The important thing, you echoing Alexandra, is that food and beverage is the glue that holds everything together. So having a strong food and beverage offer it's been known to be important in the UK for 20 years. I would say our colleagues in Europe are maybe still sort of catching up, but that's partly because they don't have the same structure of food and beverage operators that we have or chains that we have in the UK. But the important thing is to try and put the right thing in the right place. So if you're in the middle of nowhere in terms of a location, you're 60 minutes out in the countryside, there's no point trying to put a cinema there if there aren't enough people living locally to sustain a cinema. So you have to put the right thing in the right place. Good example of what's happening at the moment is the MacArthur Glen scheme, Paris Giverny, where they're creating the Maison Métier d'Art, which is a museum or a gallery devoted to ceramics. And a large gallery. So your outlet fits very, very well with cultural tourism and days out and our desire to try and improve ourselves.
Super, thanks for that. Another question was, are you facing at the moment some consumer habits change? So we have maybe an average ticket size and other demand. Do you see some changes at the moment from consumers? Thomas, would you love to start?
Yeah, I think what we see compared to 2018, 2019, we see the units per transaction are substantially increasing. The spend per customer is really, really strong and increasing. I think these are also in a way, I think all over Europe, the most surprising ingredients is that people are spending more, but they're spending more on quality. So it's not just because it's cheap bargains, they're spending quality, they want quality products. And on the other hand, because of all the inflation and all the topics we all know, they want to have maybe bargains, but quality bargains. I think that's maybe the explanation for that.
Yeah, we see the same, Klaus. So if I look at 2022, we saw still footfall behind 2019 levels, but it was compensated by the spend per visitor, which was much higher than 2019. And the spend per visitor is also what is Thomas was saying as well. They spend more at premium brands. So they maybe visit our centers less frequently, but if they visit us, they spend more money and they like to spend more and more premium brands.
Interesting. Next question is, do we see a trend in, let's say, larger shops, but fewer shops, or more shops, more variety? Is there a kind of, let's say, trend which could be followed? Otto again, maybe?
Yeah. We drive sales densities a lot, so that's an important KPI, turnover per square meter. So we only upsize brands if we believe they can do a similar or better sales density. What we do see in our top 20 brands, so our most important brands, so we have a sort of a special approach to those brands, that there's a strong demand for upsizing. And also our discussion with Adidas is very much about upsizing their stores. Because they're performing so well.
Is that the case, Alex?
Of course. No, I mean, I mentioned it. It's about sustainable growth. And of course, you want to make the big bigger. We heard it today. Where you are successful, you are looking for more space. I think the key is to find the right size. It's not just bigger, bigger, bigger. You need to find the size that still makes sense and not to overdo it. And that's the fine balance. And I think that is coming back to what you said earlier. It's good that we get challenged also by our landlords, by our hosts, so to say, in the outlets, because they have a good overview, and that helps also us to find the right size.
Yeah, super. I'm really happy with the discussion. I'm a bit sorry about the timing, because we have 1,000 more questions. I'm afraid, Reinhard, there's a volume 2 or an edition 2 we need for that. For the last 2 minutes, I need a kind of, let's say, wrap up from your side. Please give the audience or the industry 3 top-notch recommendations, what they should do, what they should figure out for their business to be as successful as the winning format outlet center can. 3 short recommendations. Would you love to start?
Yeah, sure. Understand the brand, understand the guest, and what they want. And then finally, give both what they need to succeed.
I
not
love
what
this.
you want to give them.
I love this. Thanks for that. Thomas, your 3 top recommendations.
Well, I would start with we should focus on innovation, but stick to our original USP, the outlet USP. The second is strong partnership with brand partners. The third would be for me, people in our stores, people in our management, and for the customer. Our focus, what we call influence, means all the people that are working in the outlet industry.
Super great value. Otto?
I would say embrace technology. So, it's all about data analytics and consumer insights, but I think also the future of retail is omnichannel. My second point would be sustainability, and make it core of your business and apply it to the whole retail channel and chain. And the third one is probably the most important, adapt to changing consumer trends. Change is here and here to stay, and it's going faster and faster, and we need to adapt.
Super. And Alex, it's your turn for the last 3 ones.
I focus on one. I think at the end of the day, it's about, for us as retailers, we need to have landlords on the other side who are willing to share risks and to share the burden. What we all see at the moment, costs are increasing, margins are going down, and that will hit us in the outlet business, not necessarily immediately now, but a year later. And that are the conversations we need to have with landlords now, how we can buffer that, because it can't be that only the retailers are carrying that weight, knowing the landlords also have increase of costs. But I think that are conversations we need to have very soon and find flexible approaches, how we handle that, to go through that phases that will not be easy for both sides. So
very good, a very good wrap up. And this is a fantastic round. I do appreciate very much what you've said, what you have invested. That was a great round. I'm afraid we need to have a volume 2 to have a follow-up, because we have been stuck in my second question and I have 10 more. So Reinhart, only thing I can do is hand back to you, having the last words, and thanks very much to my panelists. Very well done. Thanks.
Yeah. Wow, what should I say? Really, really brilliant and great discussion. And by the way, many, many thanks to all of you, because you gave me so many inputs for my editorial work, and we have so many questions here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As mentioned at the beginning, we will make a summary. We will send it out via newsletter on our website, so it's possible to, let's say, to see this discussion again. Many thanks to my panelists. Many thanks for the great audience watching this panel discussion. We hope to see you again in one of our next Across Retail talks. And yeah, greetings from Vienna, and goodbye.
thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.